Hey there, and welcome back to my desktop. Now, in this video, it's just going to be a quick video of me showing my keybind setup for doing the wheel with the Havoc Demon Hunter. Now, it's going to be a bit shorter than the one I made for the Priest. If you're looking for a bit more of an in-depth, maybe a bit slower explanation of this process, then check out the video with the Holy Priest. It's longer and you can see things a little bit better. But this one, I just want to give a quick mapping of how I put my buttons laid out on the wheel. So one of the biggest differences between the Demon Hunter and the Priest begins with the movement system. Now in the Priest, I tried to replicate the mouse movement. And technically speaking, that was my second attempt at this because I did this system DPSing on the Demon Hunter way before I did the Holy Priest healing, sometime in Castle Nathria, so maybe spring or summer 2021. I found it better to just use the WASD keys for movement, so gas to W to walk forwards, brake to S to walk backwards, and then use the wheel for A and D to turn left and right. And the reason why it's better to do it like this is because when you're casting your I-beam, if I need to change directions to fit more targets into the I-beam, I don't want to have my character rotation also tied to moving, because of course if you step, you'll step out of I-beam. So with the wheel just doing left and right, I have to make maybe more quick adjustments on the wheel, but it's easier to hit multiple targets that way. And then on the clutch, I've put the tab. Now, when I did this before, yes, it's a bit awkward having to kick the clutch a lot to auto switch targets with tab, but if you're faced the right direction, you can hopefully tab to the correct target pretty quickly. Just have to pay attention before you start attacking something you're not supposed to. And then as far as all the other abilities, this is the other big difference between the Demon Hunter and healing on the Priest. When I was doing this with the Priest, I had a really hard time fitting all of my spells on the wheel. I could barely fit all my healing spells, let alone any of my offensive abilities. However, on the Demon Hunter, I actually have empty spots left over, and I've found nearly everything the Demon Hunter has access to. As a matter of fact, in the way that Demon Hunters can change their talents rather frequently to better correspond with the fight type, whether it be a dungeon, a single target raid boss, cleave boss, or AoE, I've set up keybinds and spaces on my UI to already be bound and ready to go if I do switch talents. Now, there is a small exception to this, whereas it's pretty unlikely you're ever going to take Essence Break and Glaive Tempest at the same time, or Fellblade and Demon Bite at the same time, because usually when you take the Fellblade talent, you also take the passive talent, which removes Demon Bite. But if a situation ever arises, I do have an empty keybind, I do have an empty spot in my UI to where I could set it up on a different profile and have it ready to go. Now, as far as the abilities on the wheel to my paddles, I put my most popular abilities in the form of Chaos Strike and Blade Dance, always really easy to hit no matter what I'm doing with my hands. The buttons on the front of the wheel close to my thumbs, I've put those to other attacking abilities. Like when I'm using the wheel for racing, triangle is usually my headlights. So I've put I-beam to the headlight button because I-beam, high beam, the I-beam for whatever reason reminds me of like a Mazda Miata's headlights, how they lift up and blaze everything. Yeah. And then the up and down directional buttons on the wheel, I've put up to fell charge for charge forwards or charge up, and then vengeful retreat to the down arrow, because flip backwards, flip down, whatever makes it easier for me to hit the right buttons at any time. The rest of the buttons on the wheel, of course, you've got Glaive and Immolation Aura, things that are easily hittable by my thumbs, but not something you always have to be hitting because they do have a substantial cooldown. And then the buttons on the spoke of the wheel, I've got my cooldowns like Metamorphosis and, because I'm a Kyrian, Elacian Decree. Now, since these are two abilities that normally you would need to target with the mouse to use the AoE targeting circle, I had to make macros for this, which is something I sort of had to do in my Priest as well, to where they are targeted on me and will self-cast wherever I'm standing, so I just need to be sure I'm in the right place to put those abilities, which maybe isn't completely optimal because it takes away the like movement leap I could gain using Metamorphosis, but we do the best we can. And then, of course, other buttons on the wheel, I've got trinkets and interrupts and consume magic. On the base of the wheel, I've got my defensive cooldown abilities such as blur and darkness. And then onto the shifter, Since I had so many buttons, and there's not that many buttons in the Demon Hunter's full kit of utility, I've bound buttons that I don't even have talents for. I've put buttons on my keybinds that maybe aren't even that necessary, such as Imprison or Spectral Sight. You probably really don't need Spectral Sight keybound, but I did that. I keybound Shadow Meld. I keybound 2 stuns. I keybound my Kyrian Vial and Warlock Hellstone on a row of gears on the shifter for healing. About the only thing I don't have keybind is the jump feature, which maybe is a bit annoying because double jumping is a cool, helpful part of the Demon Hunter, but I'm going to be trying to avoid as much movement as possible to begin with, so I suppose I just would remove that part from the equation entirely. Now, if I was to do a fight like Sylvanas, I would definitely probably make a profile to where I can have double jump in there just for the insurance of trying to get over the bridges correctly. But I'm just going to ignore that problem for now. But yeah, so I've used this setup before I did the Holy Priest. It works pretty well. Of course, I never used it enough to get really comfortable with it, but it didn't feel bad. And hopefully sometime soon, maybe I'll do a video recording of some Demon Hunter with the wheel. I don't know when, but if that sounds interesting to you, be sure to keep an eye on this channel for whenever something like that does finally get made. But that's about it for this video, so thanks, and I'll see you next time.